Lights, cameras, billboards at 11:57 every night in Times Square. You can be part of one of New York's most exciting visual entertainment experiences. It's Midnight Moment, presented by Times Square Arts. But before we meet the creative minds behind all the bright lights, let's take a quick look at the work of 3 Brooklyn artists showcased in this year's project.
The sonic experience of Times Square is just a massive amount of noise and sound, everything hitting you at once. What I know from Times Square, my memories of Times Square, my experience of Times Square has always been as someone that is passing through. And now, all of a sudden, I'm looking for things that I can use and grab.
The idea departed from audio and working with audio and creating a visualization of the sonic experience, and then taking the audio away and then looking at the screen, looking at the moving image, and through vision getting a sonic experience. Through my headphones I heard more. There were things that you couldn't hear naturally, but through the headphones and by using a microphone that interprets, I encountered sounds that I couldn't hear otherwise.
It's not something unusual that you see, it's heat, and we generate heat. However, it's something that's invisible, and we don't think about it kind of on a surface level. We are so enamored by the visual field that we don't think about the other senses, but also these other qualities that kind of drive us. The camera that I use is a thermal camera, and what it does is records radiant energy coming off of heated surfaces and heated bodies. My interest was to see the underside or inside or through the kind of surface illusion of our daily lives. And it's somewhat ordinary, but then it becomes uncanny. You have a technology that's a machine, and what you're getting from the machine is not what we see, but kind of how the machine sees us, which is very strange. And in a way, it's kind of a poetic science. So when you think about heat, it has these incredibly beautiful, profound metaphors. You can think of us as radiant bodies, or we're warm-blooded.
The ironic aspect of showing the piece in Times Square is Times Square is a very scopophilic space, but what are we doing with the scopophilia? Being able to make a piece of work that would somehow make an intervention into that, that's an interesting question. Turning the actual space of Times Square into a public installation, not the media campaigns, and making that public sphere become the service of art rather than just in the service of capital. If artists want to utilize it, that they can try to make a different way of looking. They can produce different kinds of voyeurs, perhaps voyeurs that may come alive in a different way from the way they would ordinarily interact with spectating.
Wow, really cool.
Just gotta look up, right?
Yeah, Times Square. So imagine that, just before midnight, Times Square lights up with the spectacle of films and other visual media content. It's an art in public spaces initiative involving a massive multi-channel display and free for public consumption year-round. The project is a collaboration between Times Square Arts and the Times Square Advertising Coalition. And here to tell us how it all came about is Sherry Dobbin, Creative Director of the Times Square Alliance, as well as the Director of Times Square Arts. Thank you very much for joining us on BK Live today, Sherry.
Thank you. Very glad to be here.
First things first, we're very interested about your position.
Yes.
We want to know how you curate what goes in to performances at Times Square. And I won't ask you directly, but why not get BK Live involved in the Times Square scene? I mean, we could either broadcast from there or maybe appear at 11:57. What do you think?
We'll bring our
Oh,
own
I'd love
chairs.
that.
Yeah.
I'd love it. Will you bring the orange chairs?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah, no, please come down, because in addition to Midnight Moment, then there are performances and installations that happen in the big wide open space. We do some experimental work in different venues throughout the district. Like last summer, we did a rooftop series. So I think there are plenty of opportunities for you to come out and film.
Thank you. I will get your card.
Okay.
How specifically did you come about creating Midnight Moment?
Yeah.
So there was this desire between the sign holders in Times Square and also the Alliance. And the Alliance is a business improvement district. So they were wondering how they might take advantage to giving up a little bit of time and putting something other than advertisements there. And they've been talking, I think, for almost 2 years, trying to decide how they might do it and what it might be and what sort of time. Yeah. And so we thought about, you know, people think of Times Square and they think about a countdown to midnight. Mm-hmm. So we thought, well, every day of the year except New Year's Eve, then we turn it over to the artists. So it's a synchronized event for this. But the thing most people don't know is that all of these signs are individually owned and operated and all individually programmed, and they all have different technical specifications. Oh, wow. So there is not one button that hits to make it happen. Yeah. It actually requires, I think we have about 37 to 42 people who are involved in trying to make it happen.
Whoa, every single night?
Every single night.
And just handing it over to the artists? Yeah, that's enough to make your eyes bleed. You just hand it over to the artists every night as a countdown to midnight. I think that is so cool.
Yeah, I mean, as far as the curation, it's kind of tricky. You know, it's not your typical video showcase because it's not all one standard screen. It's not like a traditional monitor. These screens go around buildings. They go up 16 stories high. Some of them are rectangular. Some of them are round. They fit together in certain ways. So we're really thinking about not just what is a great video and not just what the artist wants to see up there, but we're looking at something that the audience really can sort of fall in love with at any point during those 3 minutes.
Yeah, we have some photos here. There's the audience.
Yeah, so this was an event that we actually did the day the world was supposed to end, on December 21st, when Yoko Ono had her piece up there, Imagine Peace, and we invited everybody to gather on the red steps and sing John Lennon's Imagine together, basically to hold back the end of the world, which
and it worked.
So that's all I want to say about that.
Give it up for the Times Square Alliance.
This one is coming up in August. These are the. This is a little bit of a sneak preview. No one knows this yet.
Exclusive.
But this is Oshimeos, who are Brazilian twins. They usually know them about doing these massive sort of painted murals. Yeah. This is the first time they've done an animation for the public, and so they created this specifically for Times Square. So it's going to be like someone coming out of a TV set, but they're the biggest TV sets.
See, looking at this image, I'm thinking when those screens start changing, playing something artistic, that it's like a Mr. Robot moment. Like there's a guy who's hacking in and he's going to give his manifesto and change Times Square.
Well, we always start it with this black and white 10-second countdown.
Okay.
To sort of grab attention and have people say, like, what's going on? Why are all these screens? This is a Brooklyn artist named, the one before is a Brooklyn artist named Chris Doyle, who did this piece, Bright Canyon. Yeah. And he just imagined Times Square as a natural canyon. And you know, what would happen, what would be the wildlife that would be in Times Square. This one's up right now. This is Eric Dyer's Copenhagen Cycles Journey.
When you say up right now, you mean that tonight at 11:57?
Yes, so the way it works is every night, and it changes on the 1st of the month. Okay. So this started on July 1st and will run through July 31st.
And so this artist has every night from 11:57 to midnight.
Yeah.
And then the August will be the beautiful creatures, the bright birds.
Exactly. Well, no, the bright birds already happened last year.
The Brazilians.
It'll be the Brazilian animated sort of twins.
That's really cool. I think it's the coolest idea ever to give it over to these artists as a countdown to midnight every single night. Yeah,
the other thing that's so great, and one of the reasons why the Times Square Advertising Coalition loves to do it, is that it makes their screens look beautiful. Yeah,
because you have we have some more images, but you have
Tracy
no
Emin,
idea. What is it? I promise.
This is Tracy Emin, who is one of the naughtiest, British artists. Who was part of the sort of sensationalist exhibition.
Well,
and
this is pretty tame.
It is for her. This is the first time she ever did a public artwork.
Really?
Yeah, and everybody was like, "What? Tracy Emin can do something that's actually acceptable in the public?"
Right.
But yeah, we did it for Valentine's Day.
Square.
Well, I know. You got to have a little bit of naughtiness. Speaking of naughtiness, I mean Warhol. So we did the Warhol screen test that had been done 1964 to 66.
Oh yeah, I went to his museum in Pittsburgh, and you can do your own screen test.
Yes.
It's the only thing they do in Pittsburgh.
So they put some of them up on the same screen during the day, and then at night we took some of these iconic, New York artists like Lou Reed and Nico.
Did you include my screen test from the Pittsburgh Museum?
I'm not really sure.
Just kidding.
Let's go back to the daily.
Was there anything that you figured out in the time that you started this event versus now when you curate it that makes it different, or like what works better on the screens and what doesn't?
Yeah, things we think about. Movement, what kind of movement? So like Chris Doyle's piece, he did a whole vertical pan.
Yeah.
which really sort of creates a
It's gorgeous.
sensation.
Yeah.
The really, really bright colored pieces just completely wash the sort of floor of Times Square and can change the environment. So in the colder months, we love really, really bright pieces because then all of a sudden it feels like a very different environment. And then we played around with also that sense of like horizontal movement. So there was a Korean artist named Song Ho-sho, and he had filmed in Death Valley.
Oh, wow.
And so when that
Stark
happened,
landscape, and you're in the middle of Times Square. So people are coming from all over the world, and they're being confronted by these images. What sort of impact has this made on tourism besides, like, you see all the commercial things and you're caught up in the spectacle, and then they actually have some, like, art in a moment?
yeah, it's kind of funny to watch people on the ground when all of a sudden they start looking and trying to understand what it is. Because
Yeah.
the
What are
natural
they
reaction
selling?
is, exactly,
Yeah.
what is that for? And so you can watch people go through this sort of question in themselves about what is that, what's the purpose, oh wait, and then just enjoying it, and then usually filming it.
And then it's over.
And then all of a sudden it finishes.
Those beautiful 3 minutes. Now, what is the electricity bill for Times Square now that we have you here? All those monitors.
What is the electricity bill?
Yeah, how much juice are we pumping into that little cavern in
I don't have that
Broadway?
figure on hand at the moment.
Okay.
Yes. Is it the most eco-green? Probably.
But some of these screens, though, we can talk about those
Mm-hmm.
advances because they're more huge than this wall of windows we have here. But
yeah.
they're LEDs. Like, the screens are not like when your grandparents came to Times Square 50 years ago. They're so crisp.
Yeah, I mean, and you can always
Yeah.
tell when it's a new screen. You can tell by the quality of it. And if you look behind, it's basically like looking at a bunch of television monitors or giant pixels.
Yeah.
So the thing is that, you know, one of the things we talk about, you say, what do you learn? You know, when you're discussing with the artist, it's got to be a really, really high quality master because a pixel is this large. You know,
Yeah.
it's not a little tiny pinpoint.
Yeah.
So any kind of
flaws show
variation
up.
or fault or whatever is just enormous.
Yeah.
You know, everything looks like a very purposeful choice.
Yeah.
And so is your curating of midnight moments. Now, who are the next few artists coming up in the next few months? Would you tell us again?
Sure. So in August is a piece called Parallel Connections. So that's Oshimeos. And then in September, Rashad Newsom is going to be our artist. And he, you should stay tuned for
wild
that. There might be a
things.
little bit of
Hip-hop going on.
Yeah, there might be. There
Yeah.
might be. You'll have to keep an eye out for that one.
Special guests.
Never shot this.
Yeah, and then Shazia Sikander is another New York-based artist. And then after that, Jesper Just, who just opened his piece at the Palais de Tokyo. A portion of it actually is going to be happening during Performa.
That's
for
great.
us in November.
This is like a stop in the art world now. There's Marfa, there's the Biennale.
Exactly, now there's Times Square.
Yeah, midnight moment. It's a really cool idea. Thank you for joining us. You'll have to come back and tell us
Absolutely.
as new events unfold. Thank you. 11:57 every night in Times Square.
Keep the Brooklyn coming.
That's cool.
Exactly,
Brooklyn
come
and
visit us
Times
and we'll come
Square.
visit you.
Thank you.
Done
All right.
and
Totally.
Okay.
We'll do BK Live from Times Square.
You heard her.